Jessica, Brian. All right. Oh, you've got it. Well done. I am posting in the chat the questions that we will be kind of focusing on this evening for later. You don't have to look at it right now. And George, if you're ready, I'll just let you kick it off.
Okay. All right, Karen, are you speaking or not speaking?
No, I'm going to let you kick it off.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. I came back from the YouTube thing and found no talking, and I thought, uh-oh, I wrecked it already.
It's all good.
All right.
So George, I had just invited you to go ahead and start, and we can do introductions and all that good stuff.
I know. I just want to do one more thing here.
Well, while you do that one other
there
thing.
It is. There it is. I just started to record to the computer instead of the cloud. All right. They didn't bring the tech guys in today. They just had us. But here we are. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your evening to spend a little time talking with us about what's going on in the world of the arts of Wisconsin. This is the fourth in a series of 4 town meetings. And speaking about the Wisconsin Arts Board, that 15-member board, of which Brian represents one of the 15 tonight, and that are appointed by the governor, that are responsible for policy and planning for the arts in the state. And therefore, every 3 years or so, we undertake a strategic planning process to think about where the agency fits in the ecosystem of the arts in Wisconsin and what we can do with our grants, but beyond grants, what we can do with our services and information and other activity that will be beneficial to Wisconsin's artists and arts organizations, and of course, the people of Wisconsin in general. So we have the questions, as Karen said, and she posted them in the chat, but we're a small and mighty group, so we'll have a conversation. And I know Karen wants to kick it off with introductions. So again, if I didn't say it at the beginning, and I often don't, I'm George Seagross, the director of the Wisconsin Arts Board.
Thank you, George. And I'm Karen Geschko, the assistant director here at the Wisconsin Arts Board. And as George said, our plans tend to be these 3-year plans. Planning in a pandemic is an exciting prospect, as you all know, no doubt. And so we're looking to get a sense of where you guys are in your work, what's working, what isn't, how you think a state arts agency might help move things forward for you. And we're looking for thoughts on our focus over the next 6 months, year, 3 years, if we're really optimistic, but knowing that right now, flexibility is key in approaching the work that all of us are doing. And the arts community has really exemplified that over the last almost, year and 3 quarters. So kudos to you all for that, for the one thing. And then, if we could do a quick round of intros so we know who's on, I would ask that you share your name, your the art form that you are most affiliated with, if you are an individual artist, an arts organization, if you are affiliated with one, and then where you are geographically. Finally, I would ask that you think about, over this last year and 3 quarters, there have been some unexpected gifts in the mix that we have all encountered, and I would ask for you to think about sharing one of those that came your way during that time. And Brian, because this is not a new question to you, I'm going to ask you to begin, please.
All right. My name is Brian Kelsey. I'm the managing director of Peninsula Players Theater in Door County, Wisconsin. I also serve as the vice chair of the Wisconsin Arts Board. I chair the External Relations Committee, and I'm a member of the Strategic Planning Committee. A different thing that I'm thankful for, this is my 4th session, so I'm going to come up with a different one, especially since I see Michelle Traband on this call, is the incredible collaboration that came out of the pandemic. It coalesced Wisconsin professional theaters in a new way, to where we did not look at each other as competition in any sense. We looked at each other as a support group to better understand how we collectively can tackle the issue and ensure that we're providing a cohesive approach to our handling of the pandemic, as well as being a shoulder for organizations who are running into very challenging opportunities with our union partners to be able to express concern and celebrate success as we all began to open our doors again.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Well, Michelle, you've been called out, so I'm actually going to turn to you next.
Sure, happy to. I'm Michelle Traband. I'm one of the development directors at America Players Theater in the beautiful Driftless district, Driftless area of South Central Wisconsin. Unexpected gift, is it the unexpected gifts of the pandemic? Boy, there are many. I would say when I think about APT and what we talk about as a staff, being able to actually, we were lucky to be able to produce this season in a non-traditional way, not in rotating rep, but we were able to produce, which was a gift in itself. But I would say that as a staff, what we've talked about is how we talk about COVID courage a lot, and that the pandemic caused us to have the courage to do things in a different way and to not say, oof, boy, we better not try that because it might not work. We had to. I mean, the pandemic forced us to think differently. And out of that came a lot of creativity, not only on the artistic side, but also in the marketing side and in development all across the board, facilities across the board. Supply chain issues. The gummy bears just weren't in abundance this summer. So our patrons had to learn to enjoy different kinds of snacks. And it seems kind of silly, but it really did open us up to looking at different ways of doing things. So that is an unexpected gift.
Awesome. Thank you. Heidi, I'm going to turn to you next, please.
Mute that. Hi there, I'm Heidi Dias Macbeth, and I live just outside of Platteville, Wisconsin. So I'm down in the southwest corner of Wisconsin in the tri-state area of the Driftless area. And I most recently have been involved as a volunteer with the Roundtree Gallery and as a part of the board. I'm the vice president of the Roundtree Gallery board currently. And the Roundtree Gallery has experienced many changes over the 40 plus years that it's been in existence. Most recently, it has acquired new space, but it also lost funding from the city, and it lost its space in the last 3-year time frame. And so longer for the funding, more recently lost the space. And a group of volunteers continue to stay committed to trying to keep the Roundtree Gallery in our area, and also to kind of rethink about how it became more relevant to the community and to this area. And so we do have a very small and dedicated group on the board, but we're really kind of looking at how we kind of move into a mode of strategic planning. And it's interesting that it's through these last 2 years, through a pandemic, that I kind of resonated with what Michelle said about just kind of having this COVID courage. It was like, we just have tried a couple of things that we've not done before, and, just kind of took a couple of risks with some things, and are now, I think, feeling, even though kind of exhausted, also really excited about what might come out of the future.
That's great. Thank you, Heidi. It is really good to see your face.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Anne, I'm going to turn to you next, please.
Yes, got to get my face on there. I'm Ann Katz. I'm Director of Arts Wisconsin, the state's community cultural development organization. Good to to see you all. As everybody who's spoken has already said, everything has been creative about this pandemic era because we have all dealt with things every single day that we could not have imagined. And so we have had to be creative just to get through the day and also to keep our lives and our work going on. And I've been in awe of the creativity and hard work and good faith that people have shown just to try to get to the next day. Hopefully we can start to think about something beyond the next day soon, although curveballs keep being thrown at us. But the creativity that people have shown and that Wisconsin has is awe-inspiring.
Thank you. All right, Lindsay, I'm going to go to you next.
Hey there,
Hey.
so Lindsay Sheridan. I'm in Milwaukee, so I work for Imagine Milwaukee. We function as the central office of arts and culture in the city, so we're the convener, connector, and amplifier. And a gift is we're a startup, and there are plenty of terrifying things that come along with that. But in pandemic times, it means that we had no norms, and that we were created to change the future of the city. And so we're well positioned to adjust as needed and do some things that were outside of our original mission and our original purpose, but that served as direct support for artists and organizations during this time. And it really put a fine point on the advocacy part of our work, and continues to do that as we work on going after ARPA dollars and whatnot. So yeah.
Thank you again for coming to our meeting last week. It meant a lot. And thanks for sharing the videos and all of your information.
Yeah, I was really grateful for the opportunity. And also I want to apologize. I wanted to hop on for a little bit, but I do have to leave at 6:30 to make a rehearsal, which is the most normal arts excuse ever. So apologies in advance for rudely leaving early, but thank you.
We rejoice that there are rehearsals to leave to, actually, frankly. Christina, welcome. We are just kind of doing the name, arts organization that you're affiliated with, geography, where you are, and then one of the gifts that come to mind when you think back on the year and 3 quarters. So many challenges, but some gifts too. So one of those, please.
Well, I'm Christina Brungart. I'm with the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art in Madison. I started here in, I guess, August 2020, so in the heart of the pandemic, and I'm still getting to know everyone, so I may not have answers to all of your questions, as I am still learning a lot about the arts and culture scene in Wisconsin. One thing I would say is a gift is it actually was time. It gave me time to really dig into understanding the organization and really get to know the team that I work with here. And they are an incredible group of people. They are wonderful to work with. And it really let me look at how things are working and how they're not working. And it was a gift to say, this doesn't work anymore. And that's not always something that you feel like you can do as an arts organization. It lets you pivot. It lets you think about how you're serving your community and how you're not. And that, I think, is a gift.
Awesome, thank you. One of the gifts that come to mind for me, I'm Karen Geschko, the assistant director at the Arts Board, is the using the word pirouette or twirl instead of that other P word that so many people have used for so long.
I sent that in message to George just a second ago. I wrote twirl.
Pivot is lovely, and so we are the arts, and we shift, whatever we do, rebalance. Yes, thank you. That is great. And because we are a quality crowd tonight who are live on here instead of just watching the stream on YouTube, I will just say that we do not have to go the full hour and a half, although, Lindsay, we will be going past 6:30. If you have any thoughts, Lindsay, before you go on those questions that I posted in the chat. Funny thing about Zoom, I think, is if you enter after the questions are posted, you don't see them. So I don't know, George, maybe you could repost. I had trouble the first time. But But I would just invite you to, if you don't have immediate thoughts about them, but are intrigued by one of the questions, or it gets you thinking, either directly about that or something related or something completely unrelated after this meeting, please go ahead. If it's tomorrow, if it's next week, if it's next month, whatever, we would really welcome your input and your thinking about all of this. So having said that, George, do you want to do a quick Arts Board check-in and let people know where we're at on stuff before we jump in these questions, or do you want to just jump into the questions? So we can't hear you, and I bet it's because
I said I'm putting the stuff in the chat, so let's go on to another conversation.
Great.
Here comes the first 5 questions.
Thank you.
I'll
Okay,
give you the
so
others
the
in a
first
second.
question that I had, I often ask is, how many of you have received grants from the Arts Board in recent years? I can look around and kind of get the answer to that one, but the follow-up question to that is, what beyond the grants can the Arts Board do to support your work in your communities, your respective communities? How can we help you address if there are any gaps in resources, in access to technical assistance, in partnerships, in anything that you are kind of thinking about or working through and running into some challenges with? You know, where do you see, if anywhere, the Wisconsin Arts Board and our resources being able to help you kind of move through whatever that is? I will say, as you're kind of thinking about that, a few of the ideas that have come up in other town meetings are things like, look, we're an all volunteer board, Roundtree, and we could really use some help in moving from where we're at organizationally to the next level of our organizational development. So help in maybe becoming a more regional, having a more regional presence, or doing a sister gallery exchange with our local artists, like a sister city thing, or forming some sort of network. We'd like to be able to talk to organizations that are dealing with similar questions and challenges and resource access. Could there be a listserv? Which prompted me to ask Anne, and I'll do it again, Anne, if you don't mind, to put into the chat a list of the listservs that came out of the listening sessions that the Arts Board and Arts Wisconsin held since last March of 2020 and on. As we connected with different cohorts, you know, we would ask, look, do you guys want a listserv just devoted to your topic? And some of them said yes. So Anne just created a public art one. Actually, the public art one was in place before those listening sessions, but one for music, one for different interest areas. So would you mind doing that again, Anne?
Yeah, I was just starting to look for that when you said that. So I'm gonna put those in the chat in a minute.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So these are some of the ideas beyond, you know, funding, beyond grant funds that have come up when we asked this question. What beyond grants can we leverage our position within state government, with our statewide perspective and with our own partnerships? What can we do to help you? And I fully realize it's 6:22 in the evening and it's been a long week. I do know.
Right, and so if you don't approach it from what can we do to help you, what are you doing at this moment that's got a particular challenge or could benefit from partnership or information resources or that kind of thing, connection? And however you choose to frame it, that's what we'd like to hear about.
Yeah, Heidi.
I'll jump in and just say, I think one of the things that we're struggling with is that all of us are kind of coming from some different backgrounds, all obviously still interested in kind of the arts and the culture in our community and in our region. But we're also not super savvy with some of the social media things. So we did our first juried show. So just getting, we used Cafe, which is a call for artists' work site. And so just the learning curve that went along with that. And then we're all volunteer with about 5 primary volunteers who are all busy in other aspects of their life and trying to kind of like figure out how you kind of keep momentum, how you bring in other volunteers that want to be more actively involved. I think that's been one of the things that's been difficult for us to bridge the gap, is that people are always welcome to come to our meetings, but they come and we're very focused about getting through them. And people are like, okay, well, why did I come here? But we would like to have people stepping forward and taking on more responsibility and more activities. And I think it's just kind of like learning how to bridge some of those gaps. And so I think even connecting with other organizations that are maybe in a similar place that we are at. So even though we've been around for a long time, things have changed quite a bit for us. And the people who are involved have changed quite a bit.
Awesome. Yeah. And as I think about this, I just want to put out the idea that that some groups use, and they call it, the time and talents sheet, right? So as people come to your meetings, you have that there, and you have the list out of all the things that you could have volunteers help with, all the things that you're involved with, and ideally you have like an hour amount besides some of those things. Other than, serving on this committee, if you want the big one to meet, however many times a year, down to, help us do this one thing that's a half hour every 2 months. And then just have that there. So it kind of stimulates some thinking. But the challenge is, in that board meeting, setting aside those 10 minutes to say, hey, what do you guys think? What's on your list, and what do you want to know about? For sure. I think we'll be doing some of those organizational development workshops going forward. Zoom is one of the unexpected gifts for me. I've been trying to move from telephone conference calls to video calls for quite some time, and this kickstarted it. And suddenly it was so easy. It was there. Didn't have to learn anything much. So taking advantage of that new access has been something we're thinking about. Yeah, George.
I'm watching Lindsay's clock.
Okay.
So Lindsay, as you get ready to head out the door, Imagine's doing amazing things. If you said, if I had everything I needed tomorrow, I would really need this or that, what would those things be that would help you in the work that Imagine's doing?
Well, this is kind of a big bucket answer, but I was thinking about, George, you were so wonderful to recommend to us, hey, this Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Opportunity Innovation Grant was available, and recommended that we take a look at it. And who knows how it will come out, but we did put in an application. And in that process, it got us talking to folks in Milwaukee about understanding the creative economy in a different way, in a way that hasn't necessarily been part of our conversation so far. Thinking about that this is the opportunity, and this world has just been like tossed up entirely to put forth some bigger and crazier ideas around what our neighborhoods need, what our cities need to emerge, and how artists and creatives should be deployed as civic leaders. And we all know this, and we have the opportunity, of course, through I'm sure many great Wisconsin Arts Board funded projects to implement and test small ideas. And I'm curious, in a big picture, how the Arts Board could help us, could help other organizations continue to think creatively about some of these other pockets of money in different departments that might come up more abundantly and more readily than arts funding might come up. If there's an opportunity here for having some of those conversations. And if there might be like a statewide play, you know, we went in on this application, but there's a broader narrative to tell there, you know, is there any possibility to do more collaborative work? And maybe, you know, despite I know many years of trying to get our state to understand the creative economy, like, is there a different angle and a different play right now that we wouldn't have ever had before? So that's what I'm holding right now. Yeah.
So
Thank you. Send her, please send Lindsay question number 5 via email. Okay. Or Lindsay, you've already gotten that via email. Sorry, George, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lindsay, one of the things I think could be like what you're describing is the gentleman who came and spoke at the summit, and you'll know his name. Sorry, I don't remember, but he said he was one of those people who during the Great Resignation decided to resign from his evaluation firm and is now working with you guys to look at beyond the economics, sort of how do we measure the social or health benefits of the arts as we go forward. I think that conversation, for example, with our friends at the Department of Health Services might get some traction. And you guys are already in that space with others across the nation talking about that, I know, but that's one example where we could leverage our position in having that conversation. And as of course luck would have it, one of the board members who was in the room on Friday actually works for Department of Health Services. So the degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon may be great, but to Health and Family Service, not so much. We're pretty close there.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. And I completely agree. It feels like, in the realms of health and the realms of creative economy, maybe we have a small window to make the case we've always made, but also in the context of recovery and urgency. So thank you.
Well, and with evaluation tools that might bring a new picture or put a new frame on it for people who can't see it the other ways we've been talking about it. So
yeah, completely. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good rehearsal. Break a leg.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. Any more thoughts? Any thoughts generated on what Lindsay was just saying? We're going to get to a creative economy, creative sector question a little bit later. Or anything else coming to mind before I move to our next question? All righty. Hearing none. The next one is pretty similar, actually, with a slightly different twist. What, in your opinion, should the Arts Board be focusing on in the coming 6 months, year, 3 years, as we look at our statewide work? That would be helpful if something comes to mind. And if you don't feel comfortable enough sort of assessing what it is that we're doing already, that's fine. But if you do have some thoughts, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to go on to a partnership question. A partnership question it is. Okay. And that is, what types of partnerships are most valuable to the advancement of the arts across Wisconsin? And how could those partnerships facilitate important work that you all are doing in your own regions? Partnerships that you either have and consider to be very important, or partnerships that you don't have yet that would be valuable, or partnerships that you wish existed like on the state level or a regional level that you could tap into but not participate in. Any of those would be great.
I'll speak and kind of abstractly about something that just weighs heavily on us right now as we look at projecting out, which 2 to 4 years on what is it going to take to get our audiences back into our venues. And we are prepared that it will take 4 to 5 years to try to get those audiences back up to pre-pandemic levels. But so I guess if I'm kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall, I would love to think creatively about ways that we can partner with other, I mean, it's all tourism, right? But how do we think about making sure that folks who have been coming to our galleries and coming to our spaces, how to get those folks back on a statewide level? How can we work together to inform everybody about all the great art being done in the state? And then hopefully that will filter into each of our butts in seats capacities questions.
That's a great question. And not just the, hey, we're back, come on back, but hey, we are doing amazing work, and we are offering old and new ways to access it. And so do we expect that we're going to have sold out houses as we did once in the time? Or do we think we might have a bunch of people in the seats and then a bunch of people accessing the work and more deeply over the course of the year on non-summer months? You know, I mean, there's so many different ways of approaching the work in this time. So yeah, I hear what you're saying about kind of a, it almost sounds like a gem grant to me if you're looking at the tourism piece. I would say that we're also thinking about local development, right? So it isn't just the tourists, but it's the people who live and are committed to the work in our own communities. George, I'm sorry, were you just trying to say something?
I actually lowered my mic, but I wasn't cutting in. What I
ask
wanted
Michelle
to
a
bring
question?
up,
Go ahead,
what I wanted to bring up was from this afternoon's town meeting, an example of what you were describing, Karen. The Madison Opera noted that they had put 40 of their programs with the retirement communities, and so that they were on the sort of their channels in their facilities, so that the residents didn't have to figure out how to get it up on Zoom or whatever, but they could just turn on their TV and they'd have these programs that they could experience. So going back to Karen's point of some people are going to be in the seats, but some people are going to access this stuff in a different way than we might have been used to pre-COVID to deliver it. And how is that a part of that the menu of things that we're going to offer as we go forward? But to your point, I think there's a tourism message there. There's a local development message. It's the partnerships are in both spaces, whether they're local DMOs, which I know APT, for example, is very involved with local tourism stuff, but it's also statewide. And I think also acknowledging our state as a destination for this activity, because we also have the opportunity to get to people who've never thought of us that way before.
And not just simply saying, okay, now we've done this production and we've filmed, we've recorded it on stage, and now you get to see the recording. But now we're taking a piece of that and we're going deeper. I mean, Lord knows the senior communities are all about deepening education and going in and having, you know, one-on-ones with artists and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting. And Brian, you were just about to say something. I'm sorry, I forgot that.
No, I was just going to say, Michelle, what was Spring Green like this past summer between you guys and Taliesin? And
we were pleasantly surprised in terms of numbers of folks that actually came and sat in seats throughout the summer. We on a normal season have around 108,000, and we had almost 45,000 folks. So that fed obviously into the community and helped keep those businesses kept those businesses safe and running. But what we're hearing from our patrons is that is just what you all were talking about, which is some of them really we query them at the end of the year, and some of what we're hearing back is that they don't know that they're ever going to want to come back to APT in person, that they will miss us, but that we're offering these opportunities to watch online, which we hope to continue in some capacity. We're not going to be financially able to support doing what we did this year. It's just too expensive to try to produce those recordings as well as we wanted to do them this year. So I guess what I'm not being very articulate. Partly,
I was trying to get
late.
just tourism numbers, because you guys are such an anchor for tourism in Spring Green. I just wasn't sure. In Door County, I mean, records were broken with the number of people who came here. We had more people coming to Door County than pre-pandemic, and 2019 was a record year for Door County, which creates its own opposite problems of, oh my God, there's too many people here. We don't have, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But
we weren't there. Yeah, we weren't there.
And I'm curious to see, because next year, as we go to full capacity and figure it out, I think that's going to be the real test year is, are those people still around? Because there's so many new people who have come into Door County. So I know we're the unicorn in this from a county standpoint, from tourism. And, this year we operated at 30% capacity and we're filled. But I'm not sure how many more seats we would have filled had we gone bigger. You know what I mean? And so I think that the true test is going to be next year. But because we did not provide a recorded option, because our artistic team opposed it from the standpoint of it takes a special sort of director to do this. It's not the same, and the short time frame we have to get things up. So I'll be curious, because we're not going to provide those virtual opportunities to attend the 5 productions. I just know from getting rights, which are things you guys don't face. You do in the Touchstone, but on your main stage, like trying to get royalty agreements and stuff has just been so cumbersome, adding the virtual component. But I'll be curious what next year, looks like and beyond.
Yeah. We just think that we're prepared for it to never be, we hope we're wrong, but we're prepared that it's going to be slow going, getting back to pre-pandemic audiences. And we're preparing that budgetarily and things like that. But it feels like a great opportunity for some partnerships and embracing the Arts Board and Arts Wisconsin to help make sure everybody's aware what a great place Wisconsin is to see all kinds of art.
Well, what a great opportunity for you guys to remind not just the community, but your legislators, the key importance of an arts institution such as American Players Theater and what it means to the economic vitality of that entire area.
And how it will be unfolding over not just the next 6 months. You guys are going to be working on this and numbers and all of that stuff, as you say, for, let's say, 4 years. And just give them a heads up that, by the way, thank you so much for whatever support you have personally shown. This is a long haul issue, and it's critical for the support of the regional economy that we continue to play a role. So,
yeah, I know Carrie definitely has reached out to everybody, to the legislators.
And we'll have tangible numbers, Michelle, as we enter. I'm hoping, I don't know if you guys are going to partner in, but you might want to consider joining the Americans for the Arts, the
Arts and Economic Prosperity.
Like Door County, we sign on the Peninsula Arts and Humanities to the Wisconsin Arts Board, because all those surveys are happening in 2022. And if you want to have absolute tangible information from, normally it's 5 years, this year it's going to be 6 years because of the pandemic, but you're going to have some absolute key indicators what happened in the state of Wisconsin. And I'm thankful that we did this 6 years ago, so that we're going to have 2 years to compare and say, this is what the pandemic did economically to Door County.
I'll check in with Sarah. I'll check in with Sarah about that.
And have her reach out to George if I don't know, George, is it too late to still sign on?
No, we still have time. I have to push back the sign up. So this month or even early next, we still have time to get people involved.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it might be a way for you to work with some of the other not-for-profit arts organizations in that area.
By the
And
way, the
join this.
shorthand.
It's a really good investment for $3,500.
Yeah. The shorthand is Americans for the Arts. And the range is for communities over $100,000, 100,000 in population is $4,500. For communities under 100,000 in population, it's $3,000.
Okay.
And the reason it's at that rate is because the Wisconsin Arts Board comes in for the entire state, which makes those numbers half price for the community.
You're subsidizing. Thank you. That's
Michelle,
good.
it was night and we were able to talk to our legislators in the language they understand, revenue.
Understood. Thank you.
All righty. George, go ahead. You're going to say something?
Mm-mm.
Okay, then I'm going to move on to our next question, which is about creative economy, creative sector, and kind of what we were referencing with Lindsay before she left. And that question is this: as you think about the concept of a creative sector in your region, what needs to happen for the arts to become a more prominent and recognized contributor to your local regional economy? So how can the Arts Board help you promote a thriving creative sector in your region and our state? And how can we help make it clear that when people think creative economy and creative sector, they automatically include the arts, and when they think economy, they automatically include the creative economy? George, do you want to share anything that came out of the summit on that recently, or not really?
I don't know that there was anything there except to say, Imagine is working in neighborhoods. And so while it's often we paint the brush of the creative economy as the entire city, Milwaukee has got a lot of neighborhoods. And so those neighborhoods are where the economy is not always evenly distributed in general, and in the creative economy specifically. So going into those neighborhoods and lifting up and into view the art and other activity is really important. And I think that that's true across the board. We are not in a position to be feeling inferior when we're having arts and economic conversations. The Bureau of Economic Analysis of the U.S. Department of Commerce says that in Wisconsin, we're a $10.9 billion with a B industry. So the arts and culture production service account is a $10.9 billion industry in Wisconsin. And that means everything, right? So it's not just the nonprofits, which is what the arts and economic prosperity measures, but this is the full creative industry. And so 96,000 people employed in that industry. And Ann, you always rattle off which industry it's better than as far as numbers. So if you could do that, that would be wonderful.
Construction.
Beer, what are beer?
Sports.
Sorry, I had to find the unmute button. Beer, biotech, and papermaking industries. Not collectively, but each of those industries has fewer employees, full-time employees, than the arts industry did before the pandemic. So those are the numbers that really get people's attention, right? When you combine those numbers with the stories that you all have, that's a very powerful argument. So if I can just expound for one more second, the question about what can we do to make a thriving creative economy and make the decision makers and just people in general realize that a thriving creative economy is important. You're all doing it. We're all doing it. We're all doing it every single minute of the day. And there isn't a moment where we're going to be able to stop doing it. We need to continue to be more organized, more collaborative, but we're all doing that and more. So I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm just saying that the work is already happening from our point of view and the Arts Board's point of view. We're always working on the collaborations and partnerships statewide, regionally, and locally that are going to help move things forward from the ground up. And so, there are hopefully in 2022, got to learn how to say that. We can, both of our agencies can be helpful in terms of strategic planning conversations, advocacy, big advocacy and small advocacy and education with decision makers, talking to decision makers about ARPA money and how you can get some on the local level. All of those are things that we're working on, the Arts Board's working on, you're all working on. But if you have questions and when you want to talk about this kind of stuff, talk to me, talk to George, talk to Karen. We want to help you brainstorm, strategize, plan from the ground, from the local level on up.
Can I just piggyback, Karen, can I just piggyback on that? And this is talking about the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study as well. The last time we did it, some of the things that came out of that we learned in Door County as we talk about the power of, the economic driver, is that 51% of the respondents to the surveys indicated that the primary purpose of their trip to Door County was to visit that cultural institution. 45% of non-resident attendees said they would have chosen a different location to attend a different event had it not been happening. And 48% of residents attendees said they would have left their community to go and see something and spend money outside their community had that experience not existed within their community. So there's just these key takeaways, and it really reinforces the value and the economic driver, as Ann talks about the other. We often get relegated to the arts as a frivolity versus looking at manufacturing and whatnot, and understanding that we're manufacturing art, and there is an audience, and they pay sales tax when they come and see things like us. So we drive revenue in multiple ways back to the state.
And if I can build on what's been said, a couple things. Brian just pointed to the return. We often talk about the ROI, the other ROI, the return on imagination. And the reality of that is, in this 21st century creative economy in which we live, and it's been mentioned already this evening, the business leaders and others are looking for creative workers. And creative workers are not going to live where creativity doesn't live. And so besides being important to the bottom line where we're paying into sales tax, et cetera, there is this other thing where if people are looking for the community to live in and then looking for the work, there better be some arts and culture and also the beauty and the nature. The story I wanted to tell about that was when I was at APT for a gem check presentation a couple of years ago. I was at the Touchstone, and when we were done with the performance, I was walking down the hill with a person, and I said, well, how do you come here today? And she said, well, I'm from Illinois. And she said, but my husband and I like it here so much, meaning the beauty of the natural environment and APT, we bought a second house here. Now, you're not picking that up on your economic impact study, but those stories are golden to the stories that need to be told. And the final thing I'll say on this is that I think we all, during COVID, had millions of ways to point to where the arts weren't, right? The arts weren't here, therefore there was nobody downtown in a restaurant, obviously closed for COVID as well, but nobody's moving around downtown. The vibrancy of a downtown completely collapsed on itself because the very things we bring to those communities weren't there. So as things get built back up, it's really important to remind people, decision makers, that that's a necessity, and the magic the magic that we all bring, whether it's in a gallery or on the stage, takes work, takes investment, and it doesn't just happen. And so that's part of the storytelling that we're going to need to do, because I think especially the general person out there, the general public person will say, yeah, I didn't make it through this without picking up the book that I needed to read, or listening to the music I loved, or seeing an APT thing streamed to me, or either going to the gallery or seeing it into my home on my website. It was not only economic, it was so much a part of living and living a good life in a situation that was not good at all.
And being inspired to pick up your own instrument again, and being inspired to do your own writing, and being inspired to all of those creative
Absolutely.
pieces.
Really
So you talked about storytelling, and so building off of everything that you all just said, I would be interested to know from those on the call here, what do you need in order to show up, have someone from your organization show up at the next economic meeting in your city, in your county, in your region? What do you need to have informationally, stylistically, whatever, to say, hey, looking forward to talking about how you guys are integrating the creative economy into this work. Got a lot of resources, specifically how your organization might do that, what you would need, knowing that there are some type A's and type B's. Some people are not going to show up. Some people are going to send an email or pick up the phone and say, I'd like to sit in on your next thing, learn about it, and then maybe in the next meeting after that, talk a little bit about what I heard and didn't hear about the creative economy. We're talking about podcasts. George is one of the masters of listening to many podcasts. I'm sure that many of you guys on this call are. It's on my to-do list. But is there a podcast where you hear the stories? This is how I did it. This is the script that I used. This is what I did. And have those really specific steps and the specific points articulated, so that you or someone from your organization, staff, or board would be willing to engage in that conversation at that level over time. So yeah, Heidi, you're actually unmuted.
I just noticed that. I think that we are interested in doing those things in our community, and kind of like going in and listening to things and then coming back and having those kinds of conversations. I do think that we probably need to spend some time like looking at what types of resources are out there, and maybe fine tuning a message so that we're consistently kind of, whoever from our organization decides that we'll take that meeting, or we'll take that kind of thing, that we've even got our own message about the gallery consistent. And so I think we still keep kind of coming back to some of those kind of operational, strategic kinds of things. But I think we're very, very interested in having those conversations in our community and in our region.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I appreciate your point about, taking assignments. Like, okay, I'll do this for 6 months, or I'll take these meetings for 6 months, or there's one or two that I'd be willing to do on a, every other month basis, or whatever, to just show up and be present, because there's power in the faces, whether the face is on Zoom or the face is in person. So there's that. Well, thank you. I appreciate you considering that question, and again, asking it of other staff or board members, and then maybe getting back to us. That would be great. Telling those stories is a powerful thing. Ilka,
Christina,
I just realized. Go ahead.
Is anything, I was asking for Christina, is there anything like that has come your way, either from the downtown organization in Madison, or any groups like that have come to the museum and said, as we emerge from all this, we'd like to think about how you connect with us and we connect with you?
It's interesting because there are a few but they're, like Destination Madison has had some conversations, and some of the bigger companies have had conversations. I actually would really love for us to connect more with industries, because one of the things that is forgotten about is that very important thing of why people stay. Just what you were saying, they stay because there are things here for their families. There are things here that they will not do the 2 to 3 year job transition in and out. They see themselves growing here. They see the support systems. They see the things that are going to be the livelihood and the vibrancy that they're wanting. And I think having those partnerships and conversations with some of the corporations and the industries here that don't necessarily see the arts as part of the thing that they need to bring to their new employees as part of that onboarding process, I'd love to have those partnerships and conversations, because when I've had them, they've been incredibly rewarding, because then they start to see how we feed into those moments of they stay, they play, they spend more money.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that that's really crucial, because again, the model got flipped in the early 90s, the Richard Florida rise of the creative class thing, where we all learned people choose the place they want to live and then they get the job. Economic development is slowly catching up still to that notion. And so in the past, we would have talked about what you were saying is quality of life, and it would have been lower on the economic rung, right? It's not the serious economic development. However, in the 21st century, it should be among the top points that economic developers think about, because they want to retain the great people we have in Madison. We want to retain those students who are coming out of the university, right? We don't want to see them go elsewhere. And we want to attract folks back to the state, wherever that place in the state they've come. In order to do that, we have to demonstrate that vibrancy. Have you seen any strategies that in those conversations that seem successful in getting those industry people sitting down and having that conversation?
It's really been very direct, and it was, making sure you have an introduction, somebody providing that stepping stone to getting you into those like bigger corporations that do not necessarily think about it, because there are corporations around here with 10, 20, 30,000 employees, and that's an audience, and that's who I'm hoping will come to visit us. Because one thing that we're also looking at is right now the schools are not doing tours and they're not visiting. So we need to figure out how we continue to let people know we're here, and that there are other activities, if their school's not bringing their kids in, that we are also doing, that you can come on Saturday, you can come on Sunday, and really trying to find those moments. But it's really the personalized introductions that have been the most helpful with getting in for those conversations. It's not an easy networking situation.
Right. Karen, you were going to reach out to Ilka?
I would.
I was saying, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a networking for just that? I mean, that would be an amazing gathering.
Yes.
Whether that's via Zoom and breakout rooms, but I doubt it. That's going to be an in-person thing. But wouldn't that be interesting? Yes, I was going to say, Ilka, I don't know how I did it. I'm so sorry, but I don't believe that I that I let you introduce yourself and say where you're from and talk about the gift that you got from this one of the gifts that came out unexpectedly from these last year and 3 quarters. Would you mind sharing that? And thank you. Sorry.
No problem. My name is Ilka Villarreal. I am from Panama, and I'm actually working with George, Karen, and the whole team in the arts board. I'm pursuing a master's degree at UW. It's in arts administration. So actually, what your conversations of today are really helpful, because I'm having the experience hands-on of what I'm learning in class. So I'm helping Marie Reinders to help her with on the other committee, the strategic planning committee, to see how we can move forward and have this actually for next year. So, and I keep listening to all of you, and what I hear back there is we have to find a marketing strategy to let people know there's value in art. So that's the summary, I would say, of tonight's reunion here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for joining in. And so I think I'm going to open this up then to the next question, unless there are other comments on and other thoughts that have sparked over the last little bit that you guys want to share. All right. My internet connection is unstable. Awesome. All right. So how do you think that the Arts Board could help you or your organization take advantage of the opportunities to serve and highlight the ever diversifying communities of your city, region, or state, from the new immigrants to the folks that you have been wanting to reach but don't seem to be able to reach within your geographic community, or those that you're reaching but you have ideas on how we might help make that reach even deeper. It's a big one at 7:04 on a Thursday night.
Karen, have we heard anything from any organization in the Sparta area or the Toma area as to how they're reaching out to the displaced Afghan individuals?
There
might
have
serve
been,
as an example to other communities.
And George, maybe you can help remind me, what was the group that did a performance beyond the fence? Shoot, I don't think it was kids from Wisconsin.
So the Madison Ballet is bringing the Nutcracker to Fort McCoy. And so they're going to do that for the kids. They're also going to bring them educational programming that surrounds the Nutcracker. So for the Afghan people, especially the kids, and then what's occurred, and I think what they've learned from that experience is how good it has been working with the military to get this done. Obviously, logistics are their superpower. So to do this with the military is easier than if you were just trying to do it on your own. And so there's a thought that they'd like to continue this for the military families after the Afghan families move on and are resettled. So I think that's happening right there, Brian, but it's also, we see the conversations happening in places like Wausau, where people are being resettled. And how are people not only getting the basic needs met, but what are we doing about food and culture and exchange of those things so that the host community gets to learn about the Afghanis who are coming and vice versa. So we're seeing a lot of that as well.
And George, just so, and I really am curious if anybody has any response to that question, but before I forget this, George, I'm assuming, but don't want to assume that that the Madison Ballet has talked with people from the Afghan community who are here already and have had some time to get their feet under them to run the Nutcracker by them, because that's a very culturally specific piece of art. And the refugees are coming from a very different cultural perspective and experience, especially the fighting and the sword play and the rats and the soldiers and all that stuff. So just wanted to see whether that's a thing.
It's definitely a thing. They're not going into this cold. No.
I didn't think they would.
Because the materials, et cetera, are being translated for the kids into their languages. So that cultural sympathy, I want to say sympathy, but that's not the word I'm looking for. But they're being sensitivity. The cultural sensitivity is really, I think,
awesome.
Quite good.
Alrighty, just coming back out of that rabbit hole, back into the larger question. If you have thoughts about this, this is DEIA and beyond, right? This is ongoing work that Wisconsin arts groups have been doing for a long time in some cases, and brand new to other arts groups who are saying there is a different way that we've been thinking about this work of reaching, let's say, people of color in our community. We're thinking about that differently than we were a year and a half ago or whatever. So, so as you mull that one over, if you have thoughts on how we can help with that, that would be great. And then I'm going to move to our last question, and that is the Arts Board envisions arts education as an important part of every child's education in our state. So wondering, where is arts education in your community? And how can the Arts Board work with you to achieve this vision that arts ed is an important part of every child's education going through our school systems? Do you know of arts ed work that's being done in your schools? Do you know if it's really great? Do you know if people are hungry for more? Do you know if people feel like there's enough? Do you know if, yeah, just checking in with you on this. Yeah, Michelle?
I'll just say that we have a really strong working relationship with the River Valley School District. So we're getting, our artists are doing workshops in those schools every year. And we're hearing from teachers, you know, it's a lot about storytelling and it's a lot about language. That's what those workshops are focused on. And then we take those workshops out into the community. But what we're hearing back and what we've been working on over the past 16 or 18 months is a new sort of residency that came out of a request from the school district, actually, to help provide teachers with resources around racial fluency. And so it's, we're not rolling it out yet. We're still in the developmental stage, but one of the things we're kind of excited about is this opportunity to talk about, to have hard conversations and base it in a literary work by a BIPOC author. So, but it came out of a direct request from a school teacher at River Valley High School who said, I don't know how to have these difficult conversations with my students in rural Wisconsin. And so APT has always been able to help us with difficult conversations because you guys know about language and you know about storytelling. So how can you help me? So we are in the process of doing that and we're really excited about it. As we get farther along in the process, we'll share more. But I would say that one of the things that I'm proudest of with APT is that we feel very strongly that we have being in a rural community, we feel a really strong responsibility to make the arts as best we can available to rural communities throughout the state. There are great folks doing work already in the big cities. So we feel a real strong affinity to trying to reach out to teachers and districts in rural Wisconsin.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think back fondly to the days of you all and your touring program and missed that. That's been a long time. And one of the things I valued about that touring program was the fact that you recognized and obviously continue to recognize that really strong work happens already in rural communities. And so what you bring is, in some cases, a deeper layer, a different aspect to the mix. And that is important work. So thank you for that comment for sure. When you are far enough along that you feel comfortable sharing details, I wish that you would share some of that arts ed information, how that work is going with that teacher, specifically with George. I'll bet that Anne would be interested too at Arts Wisconsin. So when you're comfortable, please just make a note to even early stages, right? It doesn't have to be formal, but that would be awesome. And then, all right, so other thoughts on arts ed? Heidi, you are still unmuted, and I don't know if that's because you're just there and unmuted now, or because you want to talk about arts ed a little bit.
I'm just here and unmuted right now,
Awesome.
for the most part, but I'm taking lots of notes as I'm going through here because this is sparking lots of thoughts in my head. So while I'm maybe not saying anything, it is kind of getting some wheels turning, and yeah.
No pressure, truly. I just don't want to miss an opportunity if you wanted to share something. George, you're leaning forward. Anything before I go to that very last, anything else for the good of the cause question?
I just note two things that I put in the chat. One was to put our email addresses so that after Heidi ruminates on this and is ready to feedback, she's got them, so she doesn't have to search for them. So they're in there.
Thank you.
And then also, if you're looking for the last economic impact study on our website under the commerce C of the 4 C's, creativity, culture, community, and commerce, not only is the Arts and Economic Prosperity 5 there, so the last study, but also the Bureau of Economic Analysis numbers are there. So if you're interested in either or both of those, it's an easy stop to find them both.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, then I'm going to go for the anything else for the good of the cause at 7:15 on this Thursday evening. Anything that you've sparked that you want to talk about, ask about, share? If not, you've got our email address.
I just want to ask if we were the smallest and most enthusiastic group you had in the 4 towns.
It's very interesting. Yes, I mean you are
Not the
similar in,
smallest.
right. You're similar in size to the one that was Tuesday night, right? So what's interesting,
Monday.
it was what Monday.
Monday.
Yes, thank you. Monday. So Monday night, it
Oh,
was
Tuesday.
the 6th. Monday the 6th.
Jesus, it was Monday.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it was actually 3 gentlemen that evening, and the arts board crew. Tonight is 3 ladies and the arts board crew. So it was clear to us in this that the afternoon slot was one that people were more likely to take. But what's been great about this is that the conversations have been so good. We haven't had to worry about.
And very different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and very different.
That's the best. That's the best part. And we're so grateful that you chose to spend a really valuable evening in December with us talking about this. I really want to express that gratitude to you all.
It's good to see you all. It really is.
You too. Yeah.
And to meet some of you.
All right. George, did you want to talk a little bit about 1310 or any of that, or do we want to just
Kind of a
say
bummer to
goodbye?
end on that, but I think it's okay to mention it at this moment, and just to say, we'll do the good news, the bad news. The good news is that the Wisconsin Arts Rescue Program money has been approved by the board on Friday, and grants will be going out momentarily in that program. So we're happy for that. That was a total of $786,000 from the National Endowment for the Arts. And then in addition, some organizations that we couldn't fund are going to be funded by our partner Arts Midwest, another $142,000. So total over $900,000 coming through the Arts Rescue Plan in $3,000, $7,000, and $10,000 amounts to 161 plus organizations. So that's pretty cool. As far as the 1310 that Karen raises, we get a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts every year. And unfortunately, the way the structure of the budget, state budget process is, we submit our budget in September, and the NEA tells us what we're going to get in May of the following year. So, and the good news has been that the NEA's budget has been growing over the last number of years. Even though it's counterintuitive, you might have thought it was going to go the other direction, it's been slowly climbing. in 2011, the Arts Board's budget went from 2.5 million at the state and about 800,000 from the feds to 800,000 in both places. So what ends up happening is, as the endowment goes up, well, that's the state. The endowment goes up, the state has to catch up. You would love to think that that would be done in the state budget, so the biennial budget, but it hasn't happened that way. And so there's a process called the 1310 process, where you go in front of the Joint Committee on Finance and ask them to make up the difference, which right now is $109,200. So in other words, if the state doesn't put up state money of $109,200, that means we won't be able to draw down our complete NEA award. And so the challenge for us right now is that there's very little left in the state operations budget to cut. And so it puts us in the grants category. So while the board also approved the creation and presentation awards, they're going to be pending the outcome of what happens at joint finance. We will have to get creative if it's the 1310 is not approved.
George, you want to state that, I mean, what it means is that that's double, that's $218,000 out of the budget.
Right. That's right, because we would not have the money on the state side at that level of 109.2, and therefore we couldn't draw down the federal dollars of 109.2. So that's exactly right, as Brian says. So that's what we're working on to make sure that that happens, that it is considered and hopefully positively acted upon. Once joint finance acts upon it, there's no other action that's necessary. So things will flow after that point. So I just wanted you to know that that was out there and have that conversation, because one of the other things that is a challenge is there's the thought that the rescue plan and the CARES Act money that we've seen come into the field means that the arts don't need any other money, right? You got all this money from the rescue plan.
Oh my God, I loved Christina's response and Michelle's, just watching those initial.
Exactly. So, and your action is correct, because of course, those dollars are not for the seasons going forward. They're to try to make up for the fact that everybody was closed for the better part of a year and a half. And so, but our policymakers don't know that. They don't understand that that's the case. And so they think, well, we're flush with money now, so therefore we don't need other monies. Nothing could be further from the truth, but that's a conversation you all have to have when you see those folks and just say, boy, we're really happy to have gotten this other, but we need ongoing support that we have been receiving. And that's really important to us as well, because as you said tonight, we're looking at 3 to 4 to 5 years before the audiences come back, if they come back in the way they used to be. And so therefore, we need the support of the government right now more than ever.
There's been so much trepidation from a standpoint of publicly stating how much an organization received. APT, are you out there saying, hey, we got this much from shuttered venue? I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You want to thank the government for what they've done, but you're terrified for what the perception will be. And so I think all of us stayed very quiet, knowing that if someone wanted to find that information, it was there, but understanding that we were fully shuttered and we're running on reserves or borrowing or whatever some organizations needed to do to get through it. But our fear, as George was saying, is that we don't want the legislators or the general public to have this perception that the arts don't need money because of ARPA and PPP and CARES, everything.
Right. And yeah, the other side of that, though, and I think we need to be proud of this fact, advocates up and down the system were able to get the federal government to make an investment at a crucial time in the arts. And so we should be able to stand up on the top of the mountaintop and say, you see, we told you all along this was important, and this bears that out. But Brian has described the catch-22. So as you know that this has been going on. Know that Arts Wisconsin is working on a creative economy bill as well. So there are things happening out there in support of the arts, but stay tuned.
And George, I just want to add to one thing that you said. And you said if we don't get the 200 some that we need from NEA and state to make creation presentation whole, such as it is right now, we'll have to get creative. And I would say that we've already been really creative, and we have to get more creative, or we have to get more destructive. It really depends on how you approach the work, right? I mean, we've got to figure out where to cut. And so hopefully it won't come to be, as you say, and hopefully voices will be heard, and more importantly, the great work that the arts organizations around the state have done will be strong enough to speak for itself when it comes to it. But there it is.
Yeah, and I think the other part, because Brian talked about the match of the state and the federal, but then think about the fact that all of the organizations are required to match down the line. So that's, if it's 218.4, right, then double that, because that's really what's going on, because that match isn't occurring in that way. So yeah, and know that we will, as we always do, take a laser scalpel instead of a hatchet or a bazooka to what we're trying to do here. And so we hope we don't need to get to that point, but creativity is one of our 4 C's, so we'll have to live up to one of those C's. Hopefully we won't have to.
All righty. On that note, again, thank you all for your time, your attention, your passion, your interest, your energy, and have a good night.
And Brian and Ann will stamp your frequent flyer cards later.
Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Take care.